What's good, YouTube? My name is Coach, and in today's video we're going to be doing a deck list review for Mishra's Burnished Banner, the Brothers War Commander deck. Trust me, I am aware that this is a late review, so this is coming out weeks after the actual deck has been released, and many of you may have already purchased this deck. However, I'm just making this for the people who are still on the fence about purchasing this commander deck. Be aware that there is another commander deck out there, the Urza Precon, and on the channel there will be a review for that deck as well. So when we take a look at this commander deck, first thing we always do is look at the price, and this is after release. So this number 93 right here is a legit 93, which is, I mean, after release for a commander deck, I think is pretty decent. So this would generally tell you that there are powerful cards inside the deck. I mean, you want to see this above 100, 150 for it to be a really good commander deck. However, 93 it's not bad. For whatever reason, the commander is blacked out over here, so I have to add my own. We have Mishra, Eminent one, who's the commander of this deck. He reads, at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a token that's a copy of target non-creature artifact you control, except its name is Mishra's War Form, and it's a 4/4 construct artifact creature in addition to its other types. It gains haste until the end of turn. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So you get your, essentially you turn non-creature artifacts, so Soul Ring, into a 4/4 creature that you can attack with that has to be sacrificed. I'm actually building Mishra at the moment. I went live the other day building the commander deck. I actually had a Brutaclad commander deck where the whole point was taking God Pharaoh's statue, turning it into a creature, and then making 5 or 6 copies of it. So what I did was just take my Brutaclad deck and I just converted it and I combined it with this precon. And now Mishra out of the command zone turns God Pharaoh's statue into a creature, which is pretty nice. So it's just about making 10 copies of God Pharaoh's statue so that your opponents can't cast any spells, and then they just scoop. And that's how I play Magic. So you can obviously build the commander deck any way you want, and if you have a cool idea, you can leave it in the comment section below. I know a lot of people read your comments. So the first card we have here is Slowbad Goblin Tinkerer. Sacrifice an artifact, target artifact gains indestructible. It's a decent card. It's good. If you're playing red and artifacts, you want this card in your deck. We have Audacious Reshapers. This is going to help you you sack an artifact and then you just get an artifact from your library onto the battlefield. Then you lose life, but it's a nice way to turbo through cards. You want to play this in a Saheeli commander deck because in Saheeli you generally have artifacts that cost very high. And if when you build this, if you have a lot of high costing artifacts, you'd want to keep this inside your deck. We have Emery, which is going to help you to get your artifacts from your graveyard back onto the battlefield. It's just a pretty decent card. We have Fane the Broker. I mean, you can sacrifice an artifact to make a 2/1. This seems like a card that I personally took this card out of the deck. We have Farid, Enterprising Salvager. You can goad by sacrificing an artifact, which I think is nice, or you can discard and draw. I think it's cool. I took it out. Muzio, Visionary Architect. Guys, this card used to cost a lot of money in the past, if I remember correctly. You pay 4, and you tap. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the highest mana value among artifacts you control. You can put an artifact from among them onto the battlefield. Like I said, this is, like we were talking about earlier with high mana cost artifacts, this would probably work better inside a Saheeli commander deck. We have Silas Wren, once again taking artifacts from your graveyard and putting them back to the battlefield, which is pretty good in this deck, so you definitely would want to play that. We have Glint Raker here, another card that talks about the highest mana value among artifacts. Just put this in a deck where you do that. We have Joyra, Weatherlight captain, you keep this inside the deck, guys. This is a great card. And if you want to, and like outside of this, if you want to build a collection of cards or a powerful commander deck, just taking Joyra and making a commander deck around Joyra, those decks, dude, those decks are strong. Maybe we'll build a Joyra deck on stream one day. It's actually, I don't have one. We have a Master Transmuter. Return an artifact you control to its owner's hand. You can put an artifact card from your hand onto the battlefield. Once again, like if you're playing artifacts with high mana value, this is a good card. Padim, Console of Innovation. This is a staple in artifact builds. You know, gives your artifacts hexproof. Traxos, take Traxos out of the deck. Ashnod, the Uncaring. Whenever you activate an ability of an artifact or creature that has an mana ability, if one or more permanents were sacrificed to activate it, you may copy that ability. This card is actually pretty decent inside the deck. When I built my version of this, I decided to keep this in the deck just because there were a lot of cards we wanted to sacrifice to draw cards or to destroy creatures or various things. And it's nice to double or copy those abilities. Honestly, this might even be better or stronger than Mishra. I would, like if you're building a deck around getting value off of those abilities, I would take Mishra out of the command zone and put Ashnod there. We have a Brutaclad. This is just, I've built, if I'm being honest, 4 different Brutaclad decks, and every time I build a Brutaclad deck, they release a commander that does what my Brutaclad wants to do, but better. So I've built Brutaclad so many times, and it just keeps happening. Now I have to rebuild Brutaclad again because I took Brutaclad apart. I was thinking about building Brutaclad and then taking a bunch of creatures that you can tap and sacrifice to counter spells, and then making a token copy of it, and then making 10 token copies of creatures that can tap to counter a spell. And then I just sit there with 10 counter spells on my board, and then I don't know what I would do after that, but that's just my idea. We have Geth, Lord of the Vault. Actually, I have a commander deck with Geth as well. It's pretty good card. For this commander deck, I'm not too sure how or why this is here, but I like the art on the card. And if you want to build a commander deck with that card outside of here, I think that would be a cool commander deck to have in your collection. Scavenged Brawler, Flying, Vigilance, Trample, Lifelink. This just goes into, if you guys are playing Skullbriar or ever thought about building, like if you're a new player and want a strong commander deck, Skullbriar is super easy to play, and this card is perfect for Skullbriar because it says put 4 +1/+1 counters, a flying counter, a vigilance counter, a trample counter, and a lifelink counter. Skullbriar has an ability where he actually doesn't lose counters. Even if he goes to the command zone, he keeps everything. So you essentially give Skullbriar lifelink, vigilance, flying, trample, and 4 counters, which is just monstrous. The Hellkite Igniter. This is just a good card to have inside the deck. This card can win you games, believe it or not. So it's up to your discretion whether you want to keep this card in the deck or not. But this card has won me games in the past. Herald of Anguish. This is a card I've always wanted to play, but never do. And even inside this deck right now, I don't play this card. I think I would like to play this in a deck where I would make 3 or 4 copies of this card and then kind of go from there. So we have the Workshop Elders here. Workshop Elders turns a non-creature artifact into a creature. It doesn't make a token copy of it. However, you know, that's fine. It works. It also gives them flying, if that matters. We have a Blast Furnace Hellkite. This has artifact offering, so generally you're not going to be paying 9 to cast this. However, within the constructs of what this deck wants to do, I don't know if giving your opponents double strike is something that really synergizes well with what this deck wants to do, so you may take this card out of your deck. We have a Metalwork Colossus. This spell costs X less to cast, or X is the total mana value of non-creature artifacts you control. This is another one of those cards where if you're playing artifacts that have a high mana cost, it works better. So if that's the way you want to build this deck, you keep that card in there. Then we have Faithless Looting, to draw, Abrade, Expressive Iteration, Feed the Swarm, Bedevil, Chaos Warp, Thirst for Knowledge, Fact or Fiction, this Board Wipe, which I think is pretty decent. We have Thoughtcast and Blasphemous Act. You know, what I find in decks like this is, you know, we have this Faithless Looting, draw 2, discard 2, look at 3, take 1. You know, I think that there isn't, you know, in some green decks, you'll play an enchantment and you draw cards whenever you play a creature. So you have this consistent engine of drawing cards. And inside of here, I haven't really seen anything that's just like a consistent engine of drawing cards. And when I play commander decks like this, I like to play cards that just draw me a ton of cards at one time. So there'll be cards that say you pay blue and then any amount to X and you draw X cards. So I can draw 9 or 10 cards if I want to at a time. And I find that those cards inside decks like this work a lot better. Because the reason being is that we have these artifacts over here that are going to help us draw cards. This one doesn't. This one destroys a creature. This one exiles, but also does draw us a card if it goes to the graveyard. So I think the idea is like we have Mishra on the board. You turn Nile Spellbomb into a creature. It's a 4/4 that has to get sacrificed in your end step. But then when it's put into the graveyard, you pay black and you draw a card. So you still keep your original Nile Spellbomb, and then you essentially get another one to draw a card. Soul Ring, Wayfarer's Bauble, Arcane Signet, Demir's Signet, Felwar Stone, Ichor Wellspring. It's another one that's going to draw you cards. It's actually going to draw you cards twice with Mishra. Here's a combo that a player brand new to Magic the Gathering can pull off into the Burnished Banner commander deck. Our commander Mishra creates a token that's a copy of target non-creature artifact. One of the cards inside the deck is Ichor Wellspring. When this enters the battlefield, we get to draw a card. At the beginning of our combat, we're going to make a token copy of this Ichor Wellspring, and when this enters the battlefield, we're going to draw a card. When we go to end our turn, the Ichor Wellspring is destroyed, which means that as it goes to the graveyard, we draw a card. We can then, at any point until our next turn, can activate Slowbad's ability to sacrifice this Ichor Wellspring, which is going to cause us to draw a card. We are then going to draw a card for turn, and then we can tap Emery to target an artifact in our graveyard, and we're going to target the Ichor Wellspring, which is going to allow us to cast it. When it enters the battlefield, we're going to draw a card. Because we cast a historic spell, which is this artifact, we're going to draw a card. And then during combat, we're going to make a token copy of this Ichor Wellspring, which is going to enter the battlefield, which is going to cause us to draw a card. And this combo can be found right out of the box. First card here is Mnemonic Sphere. This just, you pay a colorless and a blue, you sacrifice it, you draw a card. Mycosynth Wellspring, you're going to get a basic land when it enters or is sacked. I would just let this go. I would take it out of the deck. We have Oni Cult Anvil, where if you're going really heavy on the sacrifice artifact theme, you know, you can play this card. Prophetic Prism, ETBs, and you draw a card. We have Rakdos Signet, a Servo Schematic. Another card you might want to play if you're going to go heavy on the sacrifice theme. We have a Strionic Resonator, which is going to copy target triggered abilities. See, this is a card where I say if you're somebody who's new to Magic and you want to build a nice collection of cards, this is a nice card to have in your collection. Strionic Resonator is a good card. Copies an ability of a triggered ability you control, which I think would trigger with Mishra, which would be cool. So you can make 2 copies of something. Commander's Sphere, Cursed Mirror, Oblivion Stone, which is not going to show. Oblivion Stone's basically a really good board wipe. Oh, there it is. You put a fate counter on a permanent, and then you can pay 5, destroy the Oblivion Stone, and then all creatures or all things with fate counters on it stay. Everything that doesn't have a fate counter on it goes. Hedron Archive, Lithoform Engine. Guys, this is the reason why I bought the deck. Lithoform Engine at one point was a $25 card. You can pay 2 to copy target triggered or activated ability, pay 3 to copy instant or sorcery, and you can pay 4 to copy target permanent. Lithoform Engine is a great card, guys. You can build an entire commander deck just based off of this one card. Machine God's Effigy enters the battlefield as a copy of any creature, which I think is pretty cool. Smelting Vat. Essentially, you sack an artifact, and then once again, if you have an artifact deck with a high mana value, you play this card. Thran Dynamo, just a fantastic card to have in your collection, seriously. Trading Post, this is just just a good engine. Lets you get your artifacts from your graveyard back to your hand, which is pretty nice. Mirrorworks makes copies of artifacts. This will tap for 3, draw 3 cards when you sacrifice it, which is pretty nice. Spine of Issa destroys permanents, which I think is pretty intense. So you can make a copy of this with Mishra, and then at the end of your turn has to be sacrificed, and then you just essentially just blow something up on the board every turn, which I think is pretty cool. Wondrous Crucible, another high mana value card. Permanents control have ward 2. You end step, mill 2 cards, and then you exile a card. You may copy it, and then you cast the copy without paying its mana cost. I think it's a cool card. I think because it's 7 mana, I would probably rather play that in the Saheeli deck again. And then we have all of our lands that I'm not really going to look over. I would have to give this a 8 out of 10. I think that this deck has a ton of really good cards that, like, not just really good cards. I mean, if you're building an artifact commander deck, these are staples that you use, like Joyra, like Master Transmuter. You have that Lithoform Engine. You have the Padim. There are a lot of cards. Slowbad. There are a lot of cards inside this commander deck that when you build artifacts, you play these cards. So I give it an 8 out of 10 because even if you don't want to build this deck or play this commander deck, you can purchase this, and you can just out of this one commander deck, if you combine it with the cards you have in your collection, you could build 3, 4, or 5 other commander decks with the base of cards that you have here. So I think that that's what makes this deck more worth it to me. And as in being an 8, I think if you're somebody who's looking to buy a deck, you know, years from now, you may be in a position where you want to build a new deck, and you may find that you're able to build it because of a lot of the powerful cards you pulled from this precon. Is it extremely powerful? Is it very strong? I'm not too sure if I can say that this synergizes well enough for that to happen. You definitely would have to take some cards out and put some cards in order for it to flow very well. However, I think that as a deck and for its value for what you get here, I think this is absolutely fantastic for artifacts. If you like this video, you can like this video, and you can also subscribe to this channel as well if you want to see more videos like this. Also, keep in mind, like I said in the beginning of the video, the other commander decks and all the reviews are on the channel as well if you want to see the other commander decks before you decide to make a purchase. Okay, so whenever I end these videos, I always say the same thing. Always remember, eat healthy, okay? Work out every single day, even if it's just for 5 minutes. And most importantly, you got to believe in yourself, all right? Peace out, people.